my recommendation is always towards flexibility. Set it aside, be intentional with it. Don't lock yourself into something that you're not sure is going to be beneficial.
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Get Invested podcast with your host, Jordan and Matthias. As always, we're excited to be here with you and talk all things real estate investing, and various nonsense that livens and spices life up a bit. Speaking of which, not necessarily nonsense, not the best segue, but a livening up of life. Yesterday was Ethan's birthday, I do believe, Matthias. How'd that go?
Yeah, as we record this, it was good. Picked him up a little bit early from, middle of the afternoon from his kind of daycare things, summer daycare program that he does. Did a little mini golf, did a little laser tag. Then we had, picked up his brother, had some dinner, played around for a while. Got to open his presents, got to, call the grandparents, do the FaceTime, open the stuff that they sent, that kind of stuff. So it was a good day. I think he enjoyed it. He's super into Pokemon, and he got a bunch of Pokemon cards and the little binder notebook things that they all have with the little sleeve, kind of like we used to have for baseball cards.
Oh yeah,
super into that. So
Rachel's on Rachel's side, the nephews, they're very into Pokemon. Same thing, the whole book. Does he ever battle with them? Or
I don't think he's there yet. He knows that he'll say these cards are grouped together. It's like different phases of the Pokemon or something like that. And he'll get all excited. So he understands a lot of it. And he'll be like yesterday he was telling Nana, I got a smorgasbord. And I was like, and she was like, what? What? And I was like, dude, nobody knows what you're talking about. We don't understand this is the extra phase of this particular Pokemon base or whatever. It was pretty funny though, because he's super into it. So
yeah, they all have different strengths that kind of can be categorized, and they match up well with other, things. We were too old when Pokemon came along, but it has lasted every generation. It feels like every kid I know at some point has a Pokemon phase. And it's interesting because, we played with G.I. Joes and He-Man and all that kind of stuff, and we kind of knew what they could do, but it was never all right, strategically, Cobra will match up well with, we just never that in depth.
We just set up in that big battle scenes and fought.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool that he got a lot of things he's excited about. Now, did he get Legos that are just here's a bunch of Legos, go forth and be imaginative?
No, he gets sets.
He get the sets?
Yeah, he gets sets. So far, because we're doing next week when we're up with all of Jen's family, he'll get more. But so far, he's gotten. He really likes these. They're called 3-in-1, so it'll be a set. And there's a primary thing you build, but then there's also two other designs that they include, but they're using the same pieces. So you build one, you play with it for a while, and then you can take it apart and build two of these other options. And we've gotten him a bunch of those. He really likes those because he'll just, as a kid, you get okay, well, I'm not just going to play with this. I want to build something else. So he takes it down, builds, it has options. And we try to keep those pieces separate as long as possible, in its own Ziploc bag so it doesn't get mixed.
Yeah, right.
Because otherwise you're just searching for individual pieces forever. Typically that's when he calls me in.
Yeah, if you lose a couple of specialized pieces that can do something.
It's game over.
And you're just so frustrated. Because you can't find them. Yeah.
Yep.
So wait, I'm sorry. Did he get what did he get specifically?
It's a race car. The other options are a different kind of race car, and then a speedboat as well. So
okay.
Some cool options.
I had a speedboat. Back in the day, and a police boat, I remember. So those are
I remember they were a police boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Now this is a callback to the Legoland visit. Do they sell miniaturized versions of some of the places you can kind of walk through and see? Is there a miniaturized version, for instance, of the Kennedy Space Center? That would be interesting.
Lego does. Okay. They're not. You think miniaturized, but the box is $300, and it comes in a specific box, and it's to scale, just whatever the scale happens to be. Yeah, they do a lot of that. Famous buildings. They also do famous landmarks, things like that.
That would be cool.
It's pretty cool. I mean, you could easily spend several $1,000s on a couple of cool things, which I would do for decoration. I think that would be awesome. But I have small children and a dog, so any decoration period in our house is at risk. It's one that can be smashed into little pieces and that they play with would be way too tempting.
You would have to put it up on a shelf high in their bedroom or something where once it's done, you're like, nope, wait, that's
too much for a 7 and 3-year-old to handle.
Exactly.
They'd start twitching.
Okay, at what age are you going to buy like the Death Star or a Starship Destroyer? One of like the ultimates.
So we're not into Star Wars yet. We haven't watched those yet. We've watched a few Jurassic Parks, but once we get into them, I imagine it'll follow pretty quickly after that. I'll have to. Jen does not appreciate Legos as much as I do, so it's going to be a tall order. Like we just won't tell Mom when we go buy a $300 Lego set. Like I think I think that's one of those we'll say
forgiveness situation.
Yes, I think that's the play on this. I will get there at some point, and it's also going to have to be one where we have space, and little brother doesn't need as much because those are going to be hard to build, and Ethan and I could go heads down and build those for a long time. Probably not really super fair to little brother who's not as into Legos and can't build the same from the direction. So it'd probably have to be both of them at the maybe when Aaron is 6 and Ethan's a little older, we'll do it.
When Aaron's old enough to either participate or old enough to be like, I don't care, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I've always kind of wanted to just get one of those. I never got one of those big ones.
Jesse did. My little brother Jesse did. He had the Star Destroyer. He had a lot of really big ones. The Star Destroyer that was that big. He got that one.
Yeah. I was thinking that there was one of them. I would imagine if stereotypes apply that Jen is not as appreciative of Star Wars as you are as well.
That's correct.
Correct. See, that's a double strike right there.
I'm not even sure what she has seen of the Star Wars, if any of them all the way through.
Early on in our relationship, Rachel and I, anytime we go like bowling or whatever, we usually had a bet, whoever lost, they had to do something. And one of the ones early that I won was that she had to watch all of the original Star Wars because she had never watched any of them.
Cool.
Yeah. It took her a few years to get through all of them. I think.
I was going to say there's so many falling asleep. You have to fight through.
Well, I didn't see, listen, as a charitable person, I didn't make her watch the prequels. I was like, I'm not even going to make you do that. Just 4, 5, and 6. And then, hopefully you'll want to watch 7, 8, and 9. I don't think she's watched 9 yet, which I don't really blame. I'm like, yeah. But so just you gotta know. You gotta know. Anywho. All right. Well, I know you guys are going to go to Pigeon Forge here soon. Is Bailey gonna get kennelled, or is she going with?
No, she'll be. We've kennelled her before. There's Rover is this thing, an app. It's like Airbnb for dogs. You just book them at a place, and like a family will take care. They'll live with a family who is on this Rover app.
Okay,
she's done that.
So
before,
it's not
this place
like a facility.
Yeah.
Okay,
we've done both with her, but Rover ends up being probably like better exercise for the dog, and I think it's a little bit less expensive too, especially down here.
Probably, and if they have other dogs and other people's socialization and stuff as well. I would imagine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I didn't really say anything about what was going on with me, but
anything interesting?
No, just really kind of plugging away, honestly. So let's jump in here, and talking about kids in development actually provides us a pretty good segue, because what we wanted to do today, we're not going to call it a series yet, but there was a germ of an idea that it could be a series. A few podcasts ago, I asked a question about what would be the best move if someone had $20,000 with which they could either pay off their student loans or should they invest. But that's, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even remember what podcast topic this came out of. I know that it was related and pertinent at the moment, but I don't
remember either.
remember.
It was probably 3 or 4
one.
podcasts ago, which who knows.
Yeah.
But
so we got some good feedback on it. It seems something that people enjoyed and were interested in, especially that clip of just kind of discussing, talking about what to do in that situation. So we're going to do that today about 3 different scenarios. Like, what would you do? And essentially we're asking Matthias, so I guess it could be what would Matthias do? Although that does boil down to WWMD, which is, I don't know.
Yeah,
not the
some connotations associated
the
there.
best acronym. But anyway, so what would you do? We're going to talk about 3 different scenarios. And the first one, as I said, has to do with child development. In that, we're going to talk about 529 plans. Not so much specifically any particular 529 plan, although I do have some specifics pulled up here. But what would Matthias do if he was saving for his kids' college? Would he start a 529? Now, Matthias, are you going to act like just you, or are you going to be like the average person, right? Not someone who's like already so heavily into real estate that clearly there would be other options.
I'm gonna answer what I would recommend. If somebody asked me what I would recommend, this is what I would recommend. Not necessarily what I'm doing, but what I would recommend for like
the
an
average person who has money to put aside. So how would Matthias recommend they put aside? Would you, Matthias, suggest they use a 529, suggest another route, or, as always seems to be the case, it depends? So that's where we're going to start today.
Yeah. So let's start off real quick with just a brief overview of 529, and they vary, right, state to state. So 529 is a tax advantaged savings plan that can be used. A certain amount you can put in every year as once your kid is born, that they can use later for educational purposes, whether it be college or some other type of training program. It gets super dependent on the state and the specifics, but it could be used for trade school, potentially college, things like that. So my answer that I always start off with is, number one, you should be doing something, right? Like, everybody should have a plan for how they're going to help or get their kids started in life, right? Like, that's part of being a parent, in my opinion, getting them going towards some sort of career, some sort of thing, letting them figure out what they want to do with their lives. But I would argue off the bat, I don't like, this is something I did in my own life. I don't like restrictions. I don't like being forced into something that may not apply. And here's what I mean is that typically it's going to be a post-secondary education that the 529 is going to want you to use it on, a public, state, private university that they want you to go to. That may be the case, and if you somehow know your child is going to want to go somewhere specific, okay, then maybe this is the path for you. But I would argue, looking at college today, a whole bunch of people graduate with debt, and they don't really use their degrees. Like, a very small percentage of people use the degree they got in their current career, if they use anything. I hate the idea of being like money being locked up that I can't use for what I really want to use it for, if it happens to be outside of the allowable uses for the 529 plan, if that makes sense.
Yes. So it seems like the theme that I got from that was flexibility, or dynamism, if you want to use a term kind of more that would be a matter of applicability, right? That not only do some of them have limits as far as what you can do with them every year, there's also limitations on what you can do with the money at the end of it. Am I reading that right? That is the main drawback you see.
The main drawback. So, like, one of the reasons that I don't do a whole lot of retirement income investing myself is that it's restricted. I can't access that until I'm, 59 and a half, 60, depending on the account. I can't access those. So I've built everything to be able to use either long-term investment. I get to choose if it's going to be a long-term investment, or I get to choose if it's going to be a shorter-term investment where I can use that money for something else whenever I want to. That's why the vast majority of my investing is done outside of retirement accounts now, because I've I've built enough investment income, that's what I live off of. So I don't need to keep socking away things because I've achieved kind of what my goal was when I started investing. And anything that I put into a retirement account now, if I'm allowed to, you know, by IRS standards and rules, it's locked. Now it's behind a curtain that I can't touch for a long time. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even 40 yet. I take advantage of whatever tax advantages I can that makes sense for me to do. But for the most part, most of my life is lived in the land where I can be the most flexible with what I want to do. Something else that I want to um, that I want to touch on, I guess, is the tax benefits that you get from a 529 plan vary greatly depending on a your income, b the state you live in, because it's these aren't federal, right? These are state plans. And so if you have a state with no income tax, you're you're not getting any sort of tax deduction because there is no taxes. So you're if you're in a high income tax state, then okay, you may be getting significant advantages, tax
Right.
benefits from doing this type of plan. So that needs to come into your calculus as well. But in general, what if my kid turns 18, graduates high school, wants to start a landscaping business?
Right.
I'm going to teach my kids a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. Well, now if I had done the 529, now I've got a whole bunch of 529 money that's in his name that may be trapped. Like we may not be like he may be able to use it sometime later on if he ever wants to go get a degree or some sort of trade school that maybe work for. But at that point, I'm not able to do what is the goal? The goal is not for my kid to get a college degree unless that's exactly what he wants to do and is on the path for him to do whatever he wants to do with his life. It's hard when they're young to know that that's going to be the case without me forcing them
Yeah.
to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to me,
Absolutely.
I would rather start an account or set aside money earmarked for them. I should say I have two sons, but I would rather do something to where I can provide what's at the time what we want to do, whether it's maybe seed money, provide him a loan to go start a business. Maybe it is to go to the trade school. Maybe it's to go to a 4-year. Maybe he wants to be a doctor. Whatever it is, I want to have the flexibility to do that. And obviously, there's huge price differences in all that stuff. But I always will land on the side of flexibility because I mean, very few, for the reason being that very few people are in my status, I guess, to where I have wealth built outside of retirement accounts that I'll have the flexibility at any given time to spend on what I deem necessary or I want to spend it on. Most people will have, hey, I only have X amount of dollars each year to set aside for my kid's future. All they have is set aside in these accounts and it's locked up. Then either they're going to end up forcing their kid into something that they don't necessarily want to do, paying for something that they don't need, or it's going to be trapped and you're going to have to take some tax hit to pull that money out. You've limited resources. I would prefer maximum flexibility. That's what my recommendation is.
Yeah. I mean, I just looking at this. So just to backtrack, if I had this all pulled up, I was using AI. Look at me, cutting edge over here, doing all these compare and contrast for a few states. So the states I chose were North Carolina, because that's where I live, Florida, because that's where you live, Ohio, because that's where my wife's nephews live and her family lives. And we've actually helped them start one of these in Ohio. And then Missouri, because that's where you're from. And then South Carolina, where my niece and nephew live. And as you pointed out, they are different from every single state. The expense ratios change, the amount, I mean, who actually offers them in your state changes, how much you can deduct. Usually it's state income tax deduction, right? Some you can't at all. Now, and this goes from you can't at all in Florida because there is no income tax. So that makes sense. But in North Carolina, there is income tax, but there's no deduction for it here. And then in Ohio, you can do up to 4,000, and Missouri, you can do up to 16,000 in a joint, 8 if you're single. And then South Carolina, you can deduct, I think there is no limit. You can count it against your state taxes as much as possible, right? Yeah. But then at the same time, there's limits on how much you can put in. Like a lot of places, you can get this tax advantage for up to $10,000. Obviously, Missouri would clearly have to be more than that because they're allowing you to write off up to 16. But to give the listener some specifics to kind of go off what you're saying about them varying, and there may be a place where one of these does make sense. Now, I have a couple other things I wanted to touch on that you talked about. And I know you kind of hit a lot of different points there. One, I just, getting a degree in a way that does not put you in debt, but you don't necessarily end up using that degree is not a bad thing. Well, first of all, and I'm not saying that just because I currently am not using the degree that I have, but because there are many degrees, you're not using yours either. But that doesn't mean you didn't learn valuable skills that still apply. So the big thing is whether or not you go all in on that, basically that bet, right? And then you have all this debt, and then it doesn't pan out that is your career field, which is why actually there's been so much recent kind of return to arguments for more broad-based undergraduate degrees. Because, for instance, if you have a computer science degree right now, and you're not a well-established person in the computer science world, you're a little nervous that AI could just completely eradicate your value. And if you can't take that and translate it to something else and have soft skills and analytical skills, and synthesizing skills that can move to other fields, you're kind of out of luck. And so I guess very much so, if you go get a degree and you have no plans with that degree, or the plans change and then you're in massive debt or significant debt, I don't think it has to be massive. Yeah, that's going to put you behind, is the one thing. Two, you're right. I have not found that many of them that will. I think Ohio is the only one that does allow you to use it for something other than education. And a number of them would let you use it for trade schools. Because I know, and that's a big point for me, because I know when I was teaching high school, the district I was teaching for, they had basically just decided, nope, everyone needs to be on the college track. They made this decision, and it was a decision that was like 20 years behind the time. I don't want to go too much into like pedagogy here, but yeah, there was a time that if you like got to college, that was going to be a huge step up, and it was going to be an aspiration that pretty much anybody could reasonably have for one reason or another. But we don't live there anymore for a lot of reasons. One, there's so many other things that you can do now and do well at that don't require a college degree. And two, college is just no longer, just having that degree is no longer like your golden ticket to the next step, right? You have to have a plan with it. So that is a big part, is that if you save all this money in a state where then it cannot be applied to a narrow outcome, that
and if that's the money, that is the money that you had to set aside. Now you're double whammy, right? Like, because you don't have anything to get your kid to what he wants to do, he or she wants to do, or is part of their plan that they've decided on, but all that money's gone, it's locked up, and you don't have anything else to give. So that's kind of why I recommend flexibility. Another thing is, like, I mean, it could be as simple as an apprenticeship. Some funds to live on while you're getting an apprenticeship, and it doesn't have to be, because a lot of them are restricted to like accredited institutions, whether or not they're an associate's degree or something like that. A lot of trade schools will provide those, but then a lot of internships and a lot of who knows what you might want to get into, but it might force you to go to some place that makes it a lot more complicated, a lot more expensive than is necessary to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. Whereas, a simple apprenticeship and just not being paid very much while you're learning, for a year program or something, electrician or welding or whatever it might be, to where you can get certified to do something and then go make more money. Once you get that, the 529 probably is not going to cover that.
And yeah, so, I mean, for some of them, there would be, if it was a trade school, it would do that, but not maybe the next step if there was one.
Journeyman, like carpentry, there's a whole bunch of different ways. All these things are, if you had funds inside of an account versus outside of an account, that you're just going to be so much more flexible if the funds are outside of the account. But I will say, I'm going to transition a little bit to what I do recommend.
Okay, so that's actually where I was going to, because I had two thoughts. I mean, one is, and I think one of the things that we're probably going to end up talking about, if I can forecast here, is the ways in which there's other ways to get tax advantages. Because a 529 is essentially a 401k for college saving, right?
Great way to think of it. Yeah.
It's inflexible because of all of the provisions and concessions and advantages that the state is offering. because it's pre-tax, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there is that, and that limits flexibility. But I was going to ask, what would you recommend? Because one of the things I was thinking about, one of the things that the 529 is popular for, is that other people, like grandparents and aunts and uncles and other people who want to help a child, they can also contribute to it and be a part of that. And it's pretty straightforward. And there's ways in which, that everybody gets kind of an advantage of it, and et cetera. So that part, I seems like that would be hard to translate to another account. But we'll talk about the kind of things that would work. Yeah.
So I'm a real estate guy, so I'm going to be biased, but I would argue that a lot of the tax advantages that you have from deductions on income, growing tax free, et cetera, you can also get in real estate. Not everybody's going to be able to buy their kid a house when they're born and just pay mortgage on that until they're of age, then hand over the keys to the house. That's not really what I mean. But what I do mean is that there's stocks and REITs and things you can invest in. But basically, real estate is tax advantaged, with residential real estate especially, so that you can depreciate and write off depreciation against your income. You can leverage it and write off mortgage interest, things like that. There's a lot of ways that you turn real estate investments into the same tax advantages with 1031 exchanges. When you sell a property and buy a new one in a like kind, both for investment purposes, you can defer all the capital gain taxes till after you sell the new property, and you can just do that indefinitely. There's a bunch of ways in which you can operate real estate as if it was and receive kind of the same advantages as if it's its own Roth IRA, but it's not necessarily behind the tax wall, so you can access it whenever you need. On that note, my wife and I have discussed buying specific real estate in the kids' names while they're young, and one that'll be tax advantaged and growing equity and such as we operate it, but also we can teach them the business as they get older, and of this is your property, we're operating it, I'm teaching you how to operate your property as you get older. Obviously this isn't necessarily feasible to everybody, but there's a lot of advantages of investing in their name, where you have the flexibility to do what you want. A lot of your 529 plans, you're going to be limited to mutual funds that they pre-selected, maybe life cycle funds, things like that. So you're not going to get real estate, you're not going to get crypto or whatever. Not that I'm recommending people do, but you're not going to be able to choose. It's going to be, here's your list of things you can do. Very limited list. Choose from there and go. Same reason I like flexibility in what I can use it for. I want the flexibility of being able to invest in what I want to invest in. For instance, I know real estate. That's what I'm best at. So typically I would do real estate in this situation in one way or another, whether invest in a syndication in their behalf or long term. And that's the other thing, is that some of the limitations of real estate is it's a long term illiquid investment. But that's fine if you're doing it for your kid who's 5. He really can't do anything with it until he's 13 years down the road anyway. So my recommendation is always towards flexibility. Set it aside, be intentional with it. Don't lock yourself into something that you're not sure is going to be beneficial. I guess that's my summation of my position.
I think I'm just trying to game this out a little bit. Like, there's plenty of people who may have the funds to set aside that could build to a down payment of a house that they then rent out, right? And it's building wealth right there. And I've definitely seen recently quite a bit, I guess most of it was on LinkedIn, but not all of it, of people basically transitioning to that model from having just 529s or setting aside or whatever. But you also have to have the time to operate it. So, which a lot of people might not do, at which point I guess the way to do it would be have a fund that's the kids fund that other people who would want to contribute to the kids education could also contribute to. I don't know exactly what
that could be as simple as a savings account, a high yield savings account. And then you could just have people cut checks. Like it's simple as that. It doesn't have to be super complicated.
And then you invest in a syndication and know that this is
you build up until you have a down payment, or until you have, or maybe you just do a brokerage account. You just reinvest the dividends as you go, that kind of thing. And people can add funds as you get them. Time is the best asset for an investment ever. So as long as time is the biggest factor. So starting it early is very beneficial. Just put it in their name and let it get to work one way or another.
So, I mean, I don't want to belabor this. Is going to move on to the next one, but a brokerage account would be basically you're saying that the flexibility that would offer outweighs the tax advantages of a 529.
In my opinion,
because you would have flexibility about what you used it for and what it bought versus having to buy into pre-planned mutual funds, et cetera.
Exactly.
ETFs, et cetera, et cetera.
Flexibility in, flexibility out.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you build enough money, then you could pivot to what kind of investment you might want
100%
at any given point.
Whatever made sense for what you're trying to accomplish.
All right. Well, I just want to be clear that I don't think I am, and I don't think you are. We're not besmirching 529s. It's just that there may be a more advantageous way to do it if you have the time to kind of do a little bit of research, a little bit of planning, a little bit. Yeah.
Intentionality is the key. Is like, don't not do it because it's too much work. You're going to have to set some time aside, just like you would to set up the 529, maybe not as much, but I would say think about it and set yourself up a little bit, take a weekend, do some online research, talk to local real estate investors, do what you need to do to learn whatever it is that you want to accomplish, which I think is doable. I just think, and in the meantime, start, set aside, $10 a month or whatever it is you want to start with, whatever small,
Right.
You have $2,000, put it in an account, let it start earning while you're learning what to do with it later on down the road. As you get older, you're going to be theoretically, you're going to get better at buying houses as, you buy your own house and maybe move to a nicer house or whatever. You're going to be more financial savvy. I mean, like everybody's prime earning years is like 45 to 55, right? So that's when you theoretically have figured out everything, including how to invest a little better. So maybe you're just buying time as you learn and build to that point.
Yeah. I think the research is key in two regards. One, definitely research what a 529 looks like in your state. And then compare that to the opportunities that you have, other opportunities, and know what those are through that research. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I just looked at the clock and we said we were going to do 3, but I think we've probably talked enough, and this is enough for now. Which bright side advantages, we have more topics left over, and it could possibly be that projected series. So, leave them wanting more. I've heard a showbiz adage. So we'll do that here. As
never underestimate our ability to bloviate.
Yeah. Well, we just got down that Lego hole. Definitely took up some time, but they're worth it. So we're gonna wrap it up here. As always, we really appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to us. If you got any questions or any feedback or ideas, or honestly anything that you want to communicate to us other than just strictly profanity, we encourage you to communicate to us. Please do that. All the different ways.
More topics.
Yeah. If you have one of these, like where
what would Matthias do with this?
Yeah, exactly. Where there's two reasonable, the thing we're looking for and what we're going for is there's 2 reasonable ways to go, right? It's not like there's an obvious boneheaded one and then a good one. There's reasons for both of these, but it can be tough to make that decision. How would you make it? We would love to hear what you guys have in that regard. I mean, there's got to be so many more than what we can come up with. So that would be amazing if you guys wanted to send those in to us. You can comment on this posting. You can DM Matthias on LinkedIn. You can DM me on LinkedIn. You can email us. You can just write it to the chat bot on the website, all the different ways. We'd love it to hear from you. And if you like what you hear, of course, please restack, thumbs up, all the different things. As always, we really appreciate you hanging out and listening to us, and hope you come back next week for another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
See you.